Welcome back to Island Bike Life. Today we're going to be installing the new OneUp Components Dropper onto the Yeti SB 5.5. Before we get started, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need. Not very many for this job. Alright, before we get going, let's see what we got in the box here. Pretty straightforward. Work less, ride more. It's a good motto. Fully agree. Alright, looks like it's just the post. No cable or cable housing inside the box. Good weight to it. Seems like really good build quality. Not surprising given OneUp Components history anyway. I have their EDC tool as well, and I love that thing, that's for sure. Anyway, I guess I gotta go to the bike shop and get some housing and a cable. Be right back.
The first thing you're going to want to do is prep your frame for either a fresh install or a replacement of an old cable housing in your frame. Each bike manufacturer is going to be slightly different, but for the most part they're all going to be pretty similar. My particular Yeti has these annoying grommets to keep the dust and dirt out. The newer models have internal cable routing guides similar to Santa Cruz bikes, which is a nice touch. Once you're ready to go, use a tool similar to this. It's a little connector I got out of a Reverb many years ago. Any local bike shop should have this. It simply connects the two pieces of housing together, and it'll make it easier to fish them from the front to the rear without losing your housing inside. Anybody who's had that happen will know that it's a real pain in the ass. Once you have your housing all the way through and free and clear, go ahead and remove the old housing and discard it. You can prep the new housing now for the install of the post. I normally will cut off a little bit on the end just to ensure it's not crimped and there's nothing binding on the cable. Install a cable housing end and the cable from the seat post through to the trigger or lever side of the bike. Once the cable is in, you can prep the OneUp Components Dropper. It's a pretty simple setup. Simply remove the O-ring, put it over the cable and the housing, and insert the cable into the bottom of the post, which will secure it into the actuator. Reinstall the O-ring and place the post into the new housing. It's going to sit in there snug, but it's not going to clip in or secure itself. Once it's in there tight, you'll know. And pull the cable housing from the lever side of the bike and insert the post into the seat tube and pull it all the way through until it's down to the collar, being careful not to dislodge the housing inside. Back at the front of the bike, we're going to want to confirm the length of the hose that we need. We don't want it to be too short or too long, so we want to double check the rotation of the bars both left and right to ensure we have enough leeway in that hose. Once we're satisfied with that, mark the cable and prepare to cut it. You can do one of two things. You can simply pull the cable far enough back into the housing that you're satisfied you're not going to cut the cable when you do cut that housing. For me, the additional time it takes to just simply remove the cable so I don't accidentally cut it and need to go back to the bike shop for a second time in one day makes it worth the extra minute to just pull the cable all the way out. Back at the front of the bike, we can clip the hose at the desired location and then reinstall the cable and the dropper post the same way that we just did. I have these Yeti pieces of flare that I always install. I have them, so may as well, I suppose. Install a cable housing as well, and now it's time to reinstall the post back into the C-tube and push the cable back through to the lever side. Prior to moving on, this is a good time to install, or apply, I should say, some carbon gripper paste to your post if you are on a carbon frame. If you're running an aluminum frame, a little bit of grease there doesn't hurt as well. That'll ensure things don't bind up where they shouldn't. Feed the cable through your lever of choice. I'm running a Wolf Tooth Components lever that has served me well. Feels really good. Like the action on it and how it mirrors the single shifter on my right hand as well. Once you have your cable in, you can go ahead and double check and tighten the cable down into the lever. Now each manufacturer is going to be maybe a little bit different, but they're all fundamentally the same. You're going to want to make sure your barrel adjuster is all the way in, and then a couple of turns back out to give yourself some room for adjustment. Once you have that cable tightened down per the specs on whatever your lever is, your seat should be ready to go. Once you're satisfied your seat is working as it should, go ahead and adjust your alignment and tighten down the seat collar to whatever the torque recommendations are for your particular bike frame. Almost done. The last step is to just double check the air pressure that is in your OneUp Components Dropper. This Schrader valve is located under the top cap, very similar to where the reverb is. The main thing you'll notice if you've ever had a reverb is that instead of having a cap that you have to twist off, it simply is a rubber seal or grommet that goes over the top of the Schrader valve. It's just as fine. It doesn't really get that dirty underneath there anyway. With just a standard shock pump, go ahead and connect to your dropper post. My came shipped with about 225 psi inside. It recommends somewhere between 250 and 300 depending on what your return speed is that you're looking for. I went with somewhere in the range of 285, which gave me a return speed very similar to my reverb that I really liked and was noticeably faster than the Fox transfer that I had just before this. The last thing to do is to install your seat to whatever location and angle you prefer. The torque on the bolts is 10 newtons, pretty standard across the board, which is basically hand tight and then another quarter turn past there, which should be more than sufficient. And there you go, you're all done.
Well, all right. There's a quick unboxing, first impression, and install on the OneUp Components Dropper Post. It's available now from oneupcomponents.com. I'll put the link in the description. If you like what we're doing here on Island Bike Life, please think about hitting the subscribe and like buttons, and feel free to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Let's hit the trails.